You know those little black and white squares we scan every day? Yeah, QR codes. What if I told you they're kind of broken? Well, today we're going to peek under the hood of a real startup pitch that says exactly that. And, of course, they think they have the perfect fix. Let's dig in and see what their argument is all about. So right off the bat, this is the central question. Could this thing actually replace the QR code? I mean, that's a huge claim, right? Think about it. QR codes are everywhere. Restaurant menus, concert tickets, you name it. They're just part of how we live now. So if you're going to come along and say you have something better, you'd better have a really, really good reason. And like any good story, this one needs a villain. A pitch deck is no different. Before you can roll out your hero, your amazing new product, you have to convince investors that there's a big, scary problem that needs solving. And for this startup, the villain of their story is the QR code itself. So what's supposedly so wrong with them? Well, according to this pitch, they're static, they're boring, and they don't really fit with the company's brand. But worse than that, they're like a black hole for data. A business has no clue what you do after you scan. But the real knockout punch, the most damaging claim, is this next one. Get this, 5%. That's the big, scary number they hang their entire argument on. They're claiming that only 5% of people who bother to scan a QR code actually do the thing they were supposed to do. You know, like buy something or sign up for a newsletter. Think about that. That means 95% of the time, all that scanning is just wasted effort. Ouch. All right, so we've met the villain, we've seen the problem, now it's time for the hero to enter the scene. This is where the pitch introduces its grand solution and we get to meet the company behind it all. And the company's name is Budget Video for Biz Inc., okay? And their big idea, their QR code killer, is called the call to action symbol. And they are not thinking small. Just look at their slogan, bringing the offline world to your online presence. That's a huge vision, right? They're promising to bridge that gap between the real world and the digital world in a way they say QR codes just can't. Okay, this is where they really come out swinging. It's a direct face-off. Look at these claims. Conversion rates jumping from maybe 10% to 30%, fully customizable branding, real-time analytics, and a 50% increase in engagement. I mean, wow. Those are the kinds of numbers designed to make investors lean in and pay very close attention. They also throw in some of their own jargon, which is pretty common. You'll see this term MOVS. All that stands for is Mobile Optimized Video Site. Basically, it's just a fancy term for a custom landing page that looks great on your phone, and it comes as part of the deal. But look, a cool product is one thing, but investors want to know one thing above all else. How are you going to make money? So let's see their plan for turning this symbol into actual cash. Their strategy seems pretty straightforward. It's a two-pronged attack. First, you've got your basic subscription, $30 a month, aimed at pretty much any business out there. Then you've got the big leagues, an enterprise license for $10 grand a year, targeting huge brands who want all the bells and whistles. And here we see a classic move to get customers in the door. They're offering a freebie, an analytics tool they call the ROITRAC report. It's the classic freemium play, right? Give them something useful for free, get them using your system, and then hopefully they'll upgrade. Now we're getting to what might be the most important part of any pitch for an investor. It's called traction. This is where you have to prove your idea isn't just a fantasy on a slide deck, it's something that real people are actually using and paying for. So their first piece of proof, they claim to already have 500 businesses signed up. That number is meant to say, hey, look, people want this. The market is real. And it's not just that they have customers, they claim they're getting new ones fast. 20% growth month over month. That's the kind of number that signals this thing has momentum, that it's catching on. Then they drop this bombshell, a supposed $21 million program with Lion's Quest. Now, the pitch is a little late on the details here, but throwing out a number that big is all about showing investors, hey, we can play with the big dogs. We can land huge deals. And this timeline is all about speed. Look at this. They launch in January, form a board by April, and by September, they're claiming 10,000 active users. The message here is simple. We don't just talk, we do, and we do it fast. So where is all this impressive-sounding traction headed? Well, right here, to the famous hockey stick chart. Every startup pitch has one. They're projecting revenue to shoot up from 2 million to 12 million in just a couple of years. Look, these are always super optimistic, but you have to show that potential for explosive growth if you want investors to get excited.
Okay, so everything we've seen so far, the villain, the hero, the early wins, it's all been leading up to this single most important slide in the deck, the ask. This is where they lay their cards on the table and say exactly what they need. And there it is, $5 million. That's the fuel they're asking for to make that hockey stick chart a reality.
Of course, if you're an investor, your very next question is, okay, what are you going to do with my $5 million bucks? And this chart answers that question. You can see the biggest piece of the pie, 40%, is going straight into marketing and sales to get more customers. The rest is split between making the product better and just, keeping the lights on.
And for the grand finale, they zoom way out. This is the change the world slide. It's not just about QR codes anymore. They're talking about going international, plugging into augmented reality and VR, and even partnering up with the biggest names in the game, like Google and Meta. It's all about showing the sheer scale of their ambition.
So that brings us back to where we started. We've seen the bold vision. We've looked at the big claims. Is this really the future of how we connect with the world around us? Or is it just a really, really good story? That right there is the $5 million question that every investor has to figure out.